What's going down, everyone? And welcome back to another edition of the Archives, where somehow I've managed to motivate myself enough to make 2 videos in one day. I know, the world is coming to an end. Today, I wanted to do another wrestling video. And the timing on this video seems appropriate because recently, one Bruno Sammartino was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, I wanted to give you my thoughts on Mr. Bruno Sammartino. And if you guys recall, a while back, I talked a little bit about Andre the Giant, that I wanted to do a video about him as well. So I figured that, being that I haven't done a video in so long, that I would just kind of combine the two and just kind of give you a little wrestling history for those, that aren't that familiar. I know there's a lot of youngsters out there that believe everything they read. So I think that Bruno Sammartino and Andre the Giant are probably the 2 most overrated superstars in the history of the WWF. Blowing Triple H out of the water if it was ever possible. Now, respect where it's due. Let's start with Bruno Sammartino. I'm not hating on the fact that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is a joke anyway. There's so many great superstars that if you look at the WWE's alumni section that aren't in the WWE Hall of Fame, you're like, dude, are you kidding me? And then you got Coco Beware in the Hall of Fame and Scott Hall not in the Hall of Fame. Makes no sense. But anyway, obviously, you got to give the guy his props. He wore the belt for 6 years, and then he wore it again for like 2 years, something like that. But when I was growing up, I grew up with Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan. I would ask my dad about Bruno, and every time, and my dad's a big wrestling fan too. And every time I asked my dad about Bruno Sammartino, he's basically got the same things to say, in the sense that, my dad's Italian, and he's from New York City, too, by the way. He's never liked Bruno Sammartino. Bruno Sammartino was very boring. He did get over it with a lot of the Italians that were fresh off the boat, that really didn't speak English very well. But my dad would always mention Antonio Rocca as opposed to Bruno Sammartino. And I watched matches of both of them. Antonio Rocca was a much, much, much better performer than Bruno Sammartino. Now, so why did the WWF, why did Vince McMahon Sr. put the belt on Bruno Sammartino in the first place? Most probably because it worked. Once you get a guy over, that was a different era. See, nowadays, everybody looks for high spots in matches. But back then, everybody thought wrestling was real. So when Bruno Sammartino would get in the ring and he would bear hug somebody and then kick him and stomp him, and basically that's all he would do, people bought into it because they thought Bruno Sammartino was this tough, legitimate fighter. Not to say that Bruno Sammartino might not have been tough in real life. He looked like a tough guy. But, it's nothing in the ring is real. And back in the day, they didn't know that. So the more Bruno Sammartino... And so basically what I'm trying to say is if you YouTube a Bruno Sammartino match, you'll see that the guy basically kicks, stomps, clotheslines, Irish whips, occasional arm drag, back body drop. Very, very, very limited move repertoire. And for people who clown John Cena all the time for not having a big wrestling arsenal, well, man, you would really, really fucking hate Bruno Sammartino then, because this guy couldn't have a good match with Bret the Hitman Hart, I'm convinced. Go YouTube Bruno Sammartino. I believe his best matches are regarded as the Shea Stadium match against Larry Zbyszko. That was probably his best match. It still pretty much sucked. His match against Stan Hansen, I just watched last night in a steel cage. Awful. The match was so bad. I'm just sitting there scratching my head. How the hell did this guy ever get over with anybody? And the simple answer is it was just a different era. I watched the match with him last night against Rowdy Roddy Piper. Just a terrible, terrible, terrible match. So the point, and then you want to talk about Bruno Sammartino on the stick. Bruno Sammartino could not only did he have a thick, overbearing accent, which you can't hold it against him, but the guy was so caught up in wrestling being real that his interviews, if you look at them now, they're all just a joke. I mean, they really are just a joke. I can't stress how overrated Bruno Sammartino was, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. He does deserve a spot in the Hall of Fame, but he's definitely not the greatest WWE champion of all time. I would say, and you guys know I'm more of a fan of the past guys like Macho Man Randy Savage and Scott Hall and those guys and Steve Austin. I would say CM Punk is actually a better wrestler and much more qualified than Bruno Sammartino. Just a boring guy, which brings me, but don't get me wrong, once again, he does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. You got to put him in there, but just do me a favor and don't insult my intelligence and call Bruno Sammartino the greatest wrestler of all time. And lastly, because if you YouTube Ric Flair and then you YouTube Bruno Sammartino, you will see the difference of someone who was born to be a wrestler like the Nature Boy as opposed to someone coming along at the right place at the right time. So let's move on to child number 2, Andre, the 8th wonder of the world, Giant. Now, Andre the Giant I'm much more familiar with because I lived almost through his entire career. Not his entire career. And the part about that I might be a little off was supposedly he was a lot more flexible and faster in the 70s. I watched since 1981 or 82 and on, and I have never, ever seen a good, not even a decent Andre the Giant match. I mean, to be honest with you, I can't. His best match of all time that I can remember from 1981 on was the Hulk Hogan match. And the only thing that was really great about that match was Hulk Hogan overcoming these unbelievable odds to, finally take out the quote-unquote undefeated Andre the Giant. But, even in his early feuds in the WWF with Big John Studd and the Heenan family, you hate to say it about him because he was an important part of wrestling history, just like Bruno Sammartino, but it's much for the same reason in the sense that the era that Andre the Giant grew up in, people thought it was real. So he could get away with lumbering around the ring slow, and he was more of an attraction than a wrestler. And to be honest with you, Andre the Giant in today's WWE would never in 100 years make it. Never. Think of the great Khali, except half the speed and half the agility. It was that bad. And, I don't want to be disrespectful to these two guys because they are important figures in our wrestling history. But when people put Andre the Giant on this pedestal that he was some kind of a great performer, Andre the Giant would not crack my top 100 wrestler list, not even close. And that's basically where I'm going with this whole thing. So, I understand again that it was a different era. People thought everything was real, but I guess the question needs to be asked, I know who the worst wrestler was out of the two of them. I mean, you really couldn't get much worse than Andre the Giant. I mean, his matches were really bad against the Ultimate Warrior. They were really bad against Jake the Snake Roberts. They were really bad against Hacksaw Jim Duggan. They were just all really bad. At least Bruno Sammartino was kind of agile and, had some, good 20-minute, the Shea Stadium matches at least watchable. Andre the Giant's matches are not even watchable. So that's basically my whole video today. They both definitely, again, deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but one of them was more of an attraction, and Bruno Sammartino was nowhere close to being the greatest wrestler of all time. Thanks for watching this video. I'm going to try to do something again. I'm kind of motivated today, so maybe I'll shoot another one out there in a bit.